Good morning. And good morning, all. We'll start in a few minutes. I'm Jennifer Eubank, here for the Hips Don't Lie, Part 7, Sun and Moon YouTube channel. If you're here, give me a little chat. Send me a little note, let me know you're here. We'll get started in just a few moments. If you want to get prepared, have a couple of blocks for this practice today. Good morning. Good morning, good morning. Let me know if you're here. Looks like we have a couple of folks here. Good morning. I'm Jennifer Eubank. We'll get started in just a moment. So you can take this time to get your space ready, have your mat all ready to go, and grab a couple of blocks for today's practice. Or something that can stabilize you, like a chair. You could use a chair, or some canned goods work, or big books, thick, heavy hardwood books. Good morning, Dana. Hello. Oh, big old smile on my face. So Dana, grab some blocks. We'll get started in just a few moments. She's smiling too. I'm really smiling. My hips love a rainy day because my mind loves a rainy day. I can see better when it's not really bright outside. I have some eye issues, so I love cloudy days, so they make me feel happier. So I just sprang out of bed when I saw those clouds. My hips got that message that I was happy. So my hips let me get out of bed more easily this morning. We've got about another minute. Have your blocks. And if you'd like, you can lie back on your mat for these first few moments, or you can sit. It depends on where your energy is this morning. So I'm going to give a quick talk about our practice this morning before we get started, so you can sit or lie down for that, your choice. We've got about less than a minute now. Okay. Good morning, all. I'm Jennifer Eubank, here with Part 7 of the Hips Don't Lie series. You're here with Sun and Moon Yoga YouTube channel. We're here every weekday morning, 10 to 10:30, for a little snippet of yoga. And I'm here each Friday from 10 to 10:30, so please join me each week and check our archives on our channel. You can go back and see other videos, my videos, and other videos. We'd love to have you. So today, as we get started, I want to continue my Hips Don't Lie series. Like I said, this is part 7. And as promised last week, I thought we would focus on the psoas muscle. Psoas is spelled P-S-O-A-S, psoas. And it's a very important, complex hip muscle. You've got one on either side, and it reminds me of the Big Dipper. You know, the Big Dipper has been very prominent these days because The Big Dipper is where you should look in the sky to see the Neowise comet. And the Big Dipper is actually part of a bigger constellation, Ursa Major, the Big Bear. So many people don't realize that the Big Dipper is really just a chunk of something else. And really, the psoas is part of a bigger muscle, the iliopsoas. We call it the iliopsoas when we regard it from its in its complete form. Okay, so you've got one on either side, and the ilio, so the psoas, I'll start with the psoas. The psoas part, the smaller part of the muscle, starts in your lumbar spine, and then it comes through the pelvic bowl and then hooks down into your thigh muscles. And it hooks up with the iliacus muscle, which is inside your iliac bone, your ilium. And we've talked about this bone here. So the psoas part starts in your spine and comes down into the pelvic bowl and hooks up to your thigh bone, and then the iliacus part, the ilium part is in, or the iliacus part is in your ilium and starts right here, right around that sacral, the SI joint, and hooks up in that pelvic bowl in this big tendon down into your thigh. Okay, so it's very complex. I just learned last night that it is actually, if you're a meat eater, if you ever eat tenderloin steak, that's the part of the cow that is the tenderloin. So it's a polyarticular joint, meaning it has many different facets to its joint capabilities. It hooks up with a lot of different bones, muscles, and joints. Okay, so hooks up to the leg, hooks up to your hip, hooks up to your pelvis, and it is also very near your SI joint. So the iliopsoas is a very complex muscle that's very, it articulates the hips, it helps you flex your hips, but its main job is really more to stabilize your body. And we'll start today, my blocks are over here. We'll start today with stretching and stabilizing. First we'll stabilize it and then we'll stretch it. So like I said, have a couple of blocks and come onto your mat and come into table pose with your blocks and then come into lunge. I'm actually going to come on the front for this first part, for the first side. So come into a low lunge, and then when you're ready, make sure you've got width between the left side and the right side. So notice that I'm not lined up, there's width. And that gives me a strong base and keeps my hips stable. And my ankle joint is right under my knee joint. And that's a nice, stable, low lunge. And then I know I can turn it into a high lunge. And I'll come to the side for that. And as you're in your high lunge, maybe come up on the ball of the foot a few times and let that heel come down a few times. Stretch out your hamstring, because your hamstring muscles are very close to your psoas muscle. And stretching them out helps that muscle, because your psoas muscle works in tandem with other muscles. So when you're ready, we'll switch to the other side, low lunge. Stabilize your low lunge, find that width between left and right first. And then as you're ready, lift up into your high lunge and start to stretch out your other back leg and keep the weight even on these blocks. That's really, really important. Lift up and down a few times, stretch out that hamstring. Breathe as you do this. Make sure you keep your head up in line with your spine. So if you drop your head, that makes it harder, heavier on your lower back. And then when you're ready, we'll come back down. And then switch sides. Come into your low lunge again on the other side. Stabilize it. Make sure you have the width between left and right. And put your hands on your blocks. And then scooch that foot forward so it's in front of the blocks. And you can, don't go too far. You'll decide how far you can go. Everybody's body is different. And make sure the weight is even on the blocks. And start to come forward. Shift your weight forward. Keep your front foot and your back knee really stable and solid. And the block weight, the hands evenly weighted on the blocks there. We'll keep both of your hips stable and even and balanced, even though they're kind of doing two different things here. This one is stretching, this one is flexing. And then as you're ready, because the hamstring is a neighboring muscle, we'll take a few moments to stretch out the hamstring. So bring those blocks back and settle in. And once again, keep the weight even on the blocks. And keep this foot, the heel of this foot prominent, and the knee of this leg prominent. And that helps you really stretch this leg because you're good and you're stable and you're balanced. And you can really stretch out this hamstring. And then as you're ready, we can come up and we'll go to the other side. So when you come to the other side, you might want to shimmy your hips from side to side. And then as you're ready, we'll go into the low lunge on the other side. And then scooch that foot forward in front of the blocks. Stabilize the weight, even it on the blocks. And come forward, back knee and front foot, really keeping things stable as you stretch out your psoas on that back leg. It feels really, really nice. And breathe through it. Send some nice oxygen into the muscle as you stretch it. And then as you're ready, we'll come on back, stabilize things, heel up front, knee in the back, weight is even on those blocks, and then you can start to settle in and really stretch your other hamstring, and you can accentuate that and bring your body down if you'd like, or you can keep your body up. You can get as much of a stretch here. Well, you can get a little bit more if you go down, but there's plenty of stretching to do up here. Listen to where you are today. Where are your hips going to let you go? Are they going to let you go down far? And then when you're ready, come on back. And then let's go into table without the blocks and just shimmy your hips from side to side. And then let's come back into a child's or puppy pose. Puppy, the head and the hips are in the air. Child's, those are both down on the floor. So you decide which one is going to work for you. And take a few breaths here. And then as you're ready, let's make our way back up into table with our blocks. And then a low lunge with our blocks. And then once again, once you've stabilized that low lunge and you've got the right dimensions and balance, then you can go ahead and come into your high lunge. And then once that feels good and steady, bring that back foot forward and root it onto the floor. So now both feet are nice and rooted. And what we'll do is come up on the blocks a little bit, keep that weight even on those blocks, and use the feet and the legs and your core muscles to bring you up. And as you stand up, you can bend that front knee. And once you feel good and stable, you can bring your arms up. So we're now in a warrior one. We came up from the bottom into our warrior one. And this is a lot what we just did, a lot like what we just did. Only now we're standing. We're stretching this psoas and we're flexing the one on this side. And then as you're ready, straighten that front leg, hands on your hips, and take a few breaths to stabilize things in your feet and your legs and find that space in your torso. Hinge at the hips, come to a halfway point and put your hands on the blocks. So now we're in a half pyramid. And again, we're stretching the hamstring like we just did in the floor version. And then bring your knee down and your front foot back. And we'll do the other side. So low lunge, find balance, evenness, good solid foundation, lines and angles that make sense, rooting into that foundation to lift you up, rooting into your foundation to help you lift all the way up. And now we're flexing the other psoas and we're stretching the one in the back by way of our standing warrior one. And as you're ready, straighten that front leg, bring your arms down, and you might need to pivot that back foot a little bit so both feet are facing forward, hands on hips. Make sure they're even, and they're even as you hinge at them. And come to that halfway point, go slowly, and keep the weight even in the feet and in the legs, and your hips will be even as you come into this. So I used to put more stress in the front leg, which really taxed that front hip. So I'm asking my back hip to play a part in this. And then as you're ready, we can bring that knee down. And once again, we'll come into either a puppy or child's, or maybe just a plain old table. You decide. Something where we're symmetrical, we're even. Take a few breaths here. And then as you're ready, lift back up into your table with your blocks. And then find your low lunge on that first side again. This time we're going to do a warrior two. So when you're ready, come up into your high lunge and then bring that foot forward and lower it and root into those feet evenly as much as you can as you come up. And as you come up, bring that back foot so it's more in line with your front foot. So your front foot, the heel is in line with your back heel, back arch. And you're facing the long side of the mat. So you kind of have to pivot that back foot, and then we bend the front knee and keep this leg strong and come up into our warrior two. So when you're ready, those arms come up, and when you're ready, you turn and look at those fingertips over the bent knee. And make sure you're not leaning into that because that imbalances those hips. You want to be coming straight up out of your hips. And there's a slight rotation to each hip. A little variation there. And as you're ready, straighten that leg. And then windmill over. Find those blocks again. Pivot that back foot. Bring that knee down. And then I'm going to switch sides and we'll do it over here. So low lunge, high lunge, we root the foot, we stand up, we line up, we turn, we rotate, we're facing the long side, the back leg is good and strong as we bend the front knee, and as you're ready, the arms come up, and we look over those fingertips. Warrior two, really nice way to both stabilize and stretch out our psoas muscles on either side. This one is stabilizing, this one is stretching. And our hamstrings and our quadriceps are both helping these actions. Quadriceps in the front are engaging, hamstrings in the back are stretching. So giving the psoas room and giving the psoas support. And as you're ready, we'll straighten that front leg, and then we windmill, pivot that back foot, bring that heel up, and bring the knee down. And come back into table, and I'll switch around. And as we come into table, you might want to take a couple of breaths up in table and shimmy your hips. And as you're ready, come on back into a puppy or child's pose. And take 5 long breaths in your puppy or child's pose. And as you breathe, take your mind into your hips. And by hips, I mean whatever part of the hips you want. Maybe the hips joints where the leg bones meet into the pelvis. Maybe you're thinking more about the ilium, the actual hip bones. Maybe you're thinking more about the pelvis, the sacrum. Maybe you're thinking about all these things. And breathe into all of these areas, one or more. And bring that space that your hips love and everything that comes along with those hips. The muscles, the bones, the joints, the tendons. Find that width that the hips love and the length that the sacrum in between, the spine in between those hips like. And then whenever you're ready, let's come on up into a table position. And then let's come up into a low lunge. It doesn't matter which side. Come up into a high lunge and then step that foot forward. And then we'll reach up and hands come down in front. And now we're in a mountain pose, and I'm going to turn to face my long side of the mat, and we'll do some triangles from here. So a triangle pose, really nice way to tap into all aspects of our psoas muscles. They become very polyarticulate in this particular pose, and you'll feel it, probably. So come to your long side, and then we'll step wide. And then we'll turn our feet to one direction. It doesn't matter which one. So I've turned my right foot out and it's pointing towards the short side, and my left toes are pointing more towards the corner. So this means this hip is rotating out that way, and this one's kind of rotating a little bit in. But then it has to rotate a little bit out to help me bring my arms up like this. So there's a lot going on here. And you really want to stabilize the legs and the feet and find the space in your torso that you need. So lift up and hang out here for a few minutes. Not a few minutes, a few breaths. And find the space in the back. And then as you're ready, press evenly into both feet. And reach towards the pointed foot. And then as you're ready, fold down. And you don't really need to come down far. I've brought my hand just above my knee. I'm going to take a really short triangle to begin with. And my other arm is up high. And if this is hard for you, you can have that hand on your hip. And you can just roll the shoulder back and work on opening up your chest and your rib cage and the back with just simply having that hand down. And rolling that shoulder back can be very powerful. And maybe if you do that after a couple of rounds, you can lift back up. Keep the weight even in the legs. So important to keep things stable in these hip joints, and keep it even as you come back up. And come back to the center and take just a breath or two in the middle. So just breathe into some symmetry here. I think it's a nice idea to always hang out in the middle between each side. Then you can really let the effects of what happens in each side soak in a little bit more because you pay attention to it. And we'll turn our feet to the other side. Once you turn the feet, make sure they're good and stable. And legs are stable. Draw your belly in, lift your sternum so you're making all this space in your torso before you even lift those arms up. And maybe put a little bit more in, because the more space up here, the more your hip joints can articulate, the more they can reach and fold over. So we're not collapsing into our triangle, we're building a really nice, sound, strong triangle. And this first time we're keeping it pretty simple. Hand just above the knee, rolling the shoulder back maybe a few times, keeping the head in line with your spine. Lots of times I see people do this. It's okay, I've been there before. That hurt my neck. Root into both feet evenly, draw the belly in, get your whole body to participate, to bring you up. And get the whole body to participate, bringing those arms down. And then come back to center. And from the center, let's put our hands on our hips. And take a few breaths. Hands are on our ilium. That's the hip bone. The iliacus is the muscle inside the hip bone. That makes up the ilio part of your iliopsoas. Let's come down forward and stay a few breaths in a halfway mark. Widen the hips, widen the shoulders, lengthen the spine, the front of the spine, the back of the spine. And as you're ready, once you found that space, hinge at the hips, come down a little bit further. If it's there for you, maybe all the way down. Maybe spend a few breaths here. Maybe bend the knees, root those feet. Don't let yourself collapse into the inside edges of your feet. Keep the inside edges of your leg and the outside muscles also equally working. And see if that helps bring you up a little bit more evenly. Asking the legs, the torso muscles to bring you up. That feels nice on that back. Let's do one more triangle. Turn your feet to that first side. Root into your feet. Root into your legs. Stand tall. Find that space in the front, in the back. Kind of lift your ribs away from your hips. And that action is even easier as you bring those arms up. Keep the shoulders good and relaxed. Root into those feet. So my feet, I'm pressing into the feet, activating those legs. Now I can reach a little bit farther. And then I fold over, and now my hand is coming below my knee. So now I'm a little bit deeper. And once I land here, I check into things, okay? Things even in the hips, and in the feet, and in the legs. Breathing, finding length in this part of my body, so I'm not collapsing down. So I'm using this arm to kind of, and this hand to lean, not lean, but press into my leg to create this space. And that, finding that space here allows me to go a little deeper because I found this space in my torso, not truncating my hips as I articulate them. I want to collapse down on those hips in my triangle. I want to kind of twist and lift up off of those hips. So we're doing one more onto the other side. Build up that lower half. Root into the feet, into the legs evenly. Reach, maybe go a little further. And as you come down, take a few breaths to see and feel what's going on. So I just caught myself, okay, got to bring this head up. Got to soften this knee a little bit because I'm starting to lock this joint. Don't want to do that. Want to rotate a little bit more. I'm going to do a few breaths with my hand on my hip. And open up that a little bit more. Press into my hand down here to lift up a little bit more here. Find that space. And then as I'm ready, I root into those feet and into those legs nice and evenly and slowly come up. I don't rush it. Slower and steady protects those hips as I articulate them to bring me back up. And then come back into the center. And let's put our hands on our hips. On your ilium, take a few breaths here. And root into your feet evenly. Find all the corners of your feet. And strengthen your legs. Draw your belly in. And integrate the strength of your legs with the strength of your muscles in your torso. And as you're ready, use an inhale to lift and use an exhale to hinge at the hips and come into that halfway point and stay here for a few breaths. Maybe start to bring those hands down. And when you're ready, lengthen your spine with an inhale, and with an exhale, come down a little bit further if it's there for you. Spend as much time in the lower version as you want. If you get here and you get into trouble, just lift back up into that halfway mark, because lots of work can be done in that halfway mark. Just different kind of work. And when I'm ready, I root my feet. I make sure I don't collapse onto the inside edges of my feet. I soften my knees a little bit. I really root into my feet and my legs. I use the core muscles. The belly is drawn in. My chest is even engaged to help bring me up. And my lower back doesn't go, what are you doing to me, girl? Same with those hips. Because lots of times what goes on our hips translates into bad backs. So now we're back in our mountain pose. And take just a few breaths in your mountain pose. And as you take a few breaths, really concentrate on the mountain structure. So notice where your shoulders are in relation to your hips. Notice where your hips are in relation to your knees and your ankles. Your ankles to your hips, your knees to your hips, your knees to your shoulders. Just find all these different ways of finding these lines in your little mountain constellation. And then take your mind into your feet and make them strong, but not overly strong. So we want to have those arches lifted, and we're rooting into the corners of our feet evenly, because that evenly engages the leg muscles. And you can soften those knees and soften the hips. Draw the belly in, lift your sternum, soften your shoulders, soften your face. Maybe close your eyes for a few rounds of breath. And you can really feel what's going on in your body. And take your mind into your hips. And then down into those psoas muscles. Starts at your lumbar spine and comes through the pelvic bowl and hooks up with the part that starts in your ilium. Together forming this big tendon meeting into your thigh bone. So imagine that path that the muscles are taking in your body, from your lower spine, your lumbar spine, and from your ilium into that thigh bone. And breathe into it. And if you'd like, you can continue with the practice. We're good and warmed up, so if you'd like to do some more standing poses, a little bit more psoas and hip flexing and stretching work, you're welcome to. Otherwise, you can take just a few more moments to quiet yourself and then get on with your busy day. So once again, thank you so much for being here. I'm here each Friday, 10 to 10:30. Jennifer Eubank. If you want a more interactive experience, come and see me on our Zoom channel. Thursdays from 4 to 5:15. So thank you so very much. Thank you for being here. Have a safe, happy, and healthy weekend. Take care. Thank you. Thank you, Catherine. Thank you so much. Thank you, Dana. Goodbye, y'all. Have a great day. Thank you for being here.